Good morning, everybody. Last week, we celebrated the feast of St. Catherine on November 25th. And I noticed that we actually happen to have a lot of Catherines and Catherinas here at the Annunciation. So while my sermons are usually based on the gospel passage, today I thought it might be nice to talk a little bit about St. Catherine. But before we get to St. Catherine, I'd like to share a story with you. A couple years ago, while I was in Greece, I had the good fortune to be able to travel to Mount Athos for my first time. Now, those of you that don't know about Mount Athos is a peninsula on the northeast side of Greece, which is home to about some 30 or more monasteries. I had never been to Mount Athos, and to be honest, I didn't really know what to expect, but I was with my classmates and along for the ride. Now, the schedule on Mount Athos is much different than any schedule we're used to here in America. We're used to mostly one liturgy or service a week, but on Mount Athos they have services every day and multiple times a day. And similarly, when we have feast days in America, we'll have a liturgy on a feast day, but a feast day on Mount Athos is a very different experience. They will have these all-night services known as vigils. And while we're used to maybe an hour and a half service on a Sunday, these vigils can go anywhere from 7 to 8 hours all throughout the night. Now, my classmates were very excited for this vigil, and I have to admit I was not sure what to expect. But they were all determined that they would make it for the entire 8 hours. Whereas myself, I said I'll give it my best shot and we'll just see what happens. So came the night of the vigil. The vigil began around 10 p.m. or so. And a few hours went by and some of my classmates decided to go back to the dorm building to go to sleep. And a few more hours went by and a few more guys went back to sleep. And yet a few more hours went by. And at about the 6-hour mark, I myself began to get very tired. So I decided to just pop out of the church for a little bit. I thought I'll get some fresh air, kind of wake up and come back and be able to finish the rest of the vigil. So I went outside, I got some fresh air, felt a little better, but was still really tired. So I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll go splash some water on my face in the restroom in the dormitory building. So I walked all the way back to the dormitory building at about 4 a.m, splashed some water on my face. Still felt tired. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm in the dorm building, my bed's not too far from where I am. Let me just go sit down on my bed for a little bit. I won't fall asleep, but let me just take a seat. The chairs in the church were not comfortable, and I thought if I could just sit for a second, I think I'll be ready to go back into the chapel. So what happened? As soon as I sat down on my bed, I sat in the seated position, boom, I fell right back, head hit the pillow, and fell asleep. I slept for what I thought was about, 4 hours. I was in a very deep sleep. But suddenly, in my deep sleep, I felt a very vivid 2 taps on my right knee, and I shot back awake. And I woke up expecting to see one of my roommates or classmates who would come back to check on me and tell me, wake up, Christo, we got to go finish this vigil. So I shoot awake, and when I opened my eyes, there was no one. I was pretty surprised. I expected to find someone standing there, readying me to go back. So I popped awake, found no one in my room, and I thought, okay, well, surely there's someone in the hallway who just tapped me on the knee and went back into the service. So I peeked my head in the hallway, no one. And I thought to myself, okay, well, there's no one in the hallway, but surely this person who tapped me on the knee is probably walking back through the courtyard through the church. So I scurried out into the hallway to see if I could catch the person who woke me up to thank them. And I stepped out into the courtyard, no one. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, come on, Christo, maybe it was a muscle spasm. Maybe you had a dream, and in the dream you felt like someone tapped on your knee. But as I walked back through the courtyard to the chapel where the vigil was taking place, and I found my seat that I had left, I decided for myself that what I had just experienced, however small it was a sort of miracle. Now today we live in a very skeptical society, a very skeptical world. The world is filled with fake videos, Photoshop, fake Facebook accounts, fake Instagrams. There are songs about fake friends and fake love. And this results in people being very skeptical of surely one another. But more so, it results in everyone being very skeptical of God. But as Orthodox Christians, we should not be skeptical of God, although everyone else might be. As Orthodox Christians, we have examples and reasons to be spiritually aware of the possibility of miracles in our own lives. Now, most saints in the Orthodox Church are defined by one or two big miracles that happened and made them saints. But St. Catherine, however, the saint who we celebrated last week, and the saint for who so many of you out there bear her name, St. Catherine's life was filled with an abundance of miracles, one after another. And even though her life was very short, she was merely a teenager, and however, before her life was over, she experienced many miracles, and this can only be a testament to her powerful faith in Jesus Christ. Now, while I was at the seminary, we had a professor who began every class, no matter what the lecture was about, he would begin the class by asking any of us seminarians if we had a miracle story to share. And at the beginning of the semester, I was kind of skeptical. I'd hear stories and think, oh, come on, miracle, miracle, miracle. But as the semester went on, I began to change the way I thought about them and realized that, yes, miracles are possible if we are only spiritually open to receiving them. And so now, with that, we move on to the life of St. Catherine, which was filled with miracles. As a young girl, St. Catherine was very beautiful. And it says the son of an emperor fell in love with her, but St. Catherine did not want to marry this man because although he was rich and powerful, it said he lacked kindness. So St. Catherine did not want to marry the emperor's son. And this worried St. Catherine's mother. So she took St. Catherine to visit an old monk who gave her an icon of the Theotokos. And the monk said to St. Catherine, if you are worthy of Christ, and if you approach him in faith, his mother, the Theotokos, will allow you to see him. And sure enough, it says that one night when St. Catherine was sleeping, Christ appeared to her in a dream, and he said, you are now the unwedded bride of Christ. And in the dream, he places a gold ring on her finger. So that's one miracle for St. Catherine. Then as she got older and she grew in popularity, let's say, the emperor was very upset that there was an active Christian in the community. So he sent 150 of his smartest philosophers to convert St. Catherine to paganism, to try to get her to give up her faith. But it turns out that St. Catherine ended up converting the 150 philosophers to Orthodox Christians themselves. Now, this might not sound very miraculous, but when you think about any of the disagreements or arguments or conversations that you've been in with someone who shares an opposite opinion from you, and you think about how hard it is to get that person to change their opinion, then you can kind of appreciate how amazing it is that a young girl was able to convince 150 very smart people to convert to Christianity. Then later, the emperor was still mad at St. Catherine, so he imprisoned her. And while in prison, the emperor decided that he would starve St. Catherine to death. Now we say, I'm starving when we're feeling hungry many times, but I learned in my in a class at the seminary that starvation was actually the most painful way that the saints died. The most terrible way to torture someone is to starve them to death. And this is what the emperor tried to do to St. Catherine. And what happened? It says that God sent a bird every day to the window in St. Catherine's prison cell, and that bird brought bread for St. Catherine every day just so she could eat enough to stay alive. Another miracle. And now those of you who can picture the icon of St. Catherine know that she's always pictured with a wheel with spikes on it. The emperor decided that he would torture and kill St. Catherine to death with this wheel. But as she was about to be killed with the wheel, it says that God sent an angel down to save St. Catherine, and the angel smashed the wheel, shattering it in many pieces. And in some renditions of the story, it says that the pieces even killed pagans standing by. So anyway, another miracle of St. Catherine. Now the final miracle of St. Catherine, when the emperor couldn't take any more, finally had decided to kill St. Catherine by beheading. And even though St. Catherine was beheaded, when she was beheaded, instead of blood flowing forth from her wounds, there flowed milk, a sign of divinity. So even in her death, there was a form of a miracle. Now, we just heard a lot of miracles in a row. But do we hear these miracles with skepticism, or do we accept them as a spiritual inspiration for us and for the possibility of God to work a miracle in our lives? Now, we might not reach the level of miracles that St. Catherine had in her life, but we can experience the appropriate miracles in each of our lives if we are spiritually open to them. There are a lot of reasons to be discouraged today. In this year especially, there are a lot of reasons to lose hope, to lose faith. But with the examples of the many saints that we have, especially of St. Catherine, we should remember to take away the idea that God does have the power to work miracles in our lives if we are spiritually open to believing them. Amen.